Margaret, maybe you should sit this one out. This is just immediate family, my daughter-in-law said, smiling as the photographer adjusted the lens in my own living room. I was standing beneath the archway that separates the foyer from the great room, hands folded lightly in front of me, wearing the cream cardigan my late husband once said made me look soft but strong. The Christmas tree glowed in the corner 12 feet tall, the same artificial pine I bought 8 years ago during a post-holiday clearance sale for $400. I had fluffed every branch myself that morning. I had arranged the ornaments, most of them older than Ashley's marriage to my son. And yet somehow, when the camera was lifted, I no longer belonged in the frame. The hardwood floors had been polished the day before. I paid for that too. The fireplace mantel was lined with stockings embroidered with each family member's name. Mine was still there. Margaret. Red thread on ivory felt. I noticed the photographer glance at me awkwardly before looking back at Ashley for instruction. Ashley laughed softly, brushing a strand of perfectly curled blonde hair behind her ear. "We'll do one with you later," she said, the way someone reassures a neighbor, not a mother. Daniel stood beside her, one hand resting on their 5-year-old son's shoulder. He did not look at me. The flash went off. Click. Another adjustment. Click. I stepped back without being asked again. No one protested. No one said, "Mom, come here." I have learned that silence speaks louder than insults. I stood near the staircase where the banister curves toward the second floor. My staircase, paid off 22 years ago when Noelle and I sent in the final mortgage check. I remember the exact amount. $1,284.67. We celebrated with takeout Chinese and cheap champagne. This house was never just wood and drywall. It was overtime shifts. It was canceled vacations. It was promises. Ashley shifted the children closer together. "Let's keep this clean," she told the photographer. Clean. I wondered when I had become clutter. The room smelled like cinnamon candles and fresh pine spray. Outside, December wind pushed against the windows, rattling faintly. Inside, laughter floated easily. I watched my grandson grin at the camera. I watched my son tilt his head toward his wife the way he used to tilt it toward me when he was small and wanted reassurance before stepping onto a school stage. Click. Click. Flash. The photographer lowered his camera and Ashley walked over to review the images. I saw her swipe left, swipe right, pause. "Perfect," she said. Perfect meant a family portrait without the woman who owned the deed. This was not the first time I had been edited out. Last spring they mailed Easter cards to neighbors. I saw one on Mrs. Henson's refrigerator across the street. Daniel, Ashley, the children in pastel outfits. I had been at that brunch. I made the deviled eggs. I was not in the picture. On Mother's Day, Ashley posted a tribute online. "Grateful for the strong women who shaped me." It read. There was a photo of her own mother. There was none of me. Each omission was small. Small things are easy to dismiss. Until they are not. Ashley handed the photographer a check. I noticed Daniel hesitate for half a second before signing. My eyes drifted to the hallway closet where, behind winter coats and spare blankets, there is a locked metal box bolted to the wall. Inside that box are papers, insurance policies, tax records, and one original deed with my name in bold black ink. Noelle made sure of that before he passed 3 years ago. No matter what, he told me in the hospital room that smelled faintly of antiseptic and coffee, "You keep control." I have kept many things in my life. I have kept recipes. I have kept secrets. I have kept peace. That afternoon, as Ashley began directing the children toward the kitchen for hot cocoa, she passed me and said lightly, "We just want the photos to reflect our little unit." Our little unit. I nodded. I even smiled. My smile has always been reliable. But something inside me shifted with the quiet certainty of a door locking. I looked at the tree I decorated. I looked at the staircase I refinished. I looked at the family portrait glowing on the photographer's screen. And I made a decision that did not require raised voices or tears. If I could be removed from the frame in my own home, then perhaps it was time to remind them whose house it truly was. That evening, after the photographer left and the children carried their mugs of cocoa upstairs, the house returned to its usual winter quiet. The lights on the tree blinked in slow rhythm, red to gold to green, reflecting softly against the wide windows that overlooked the backyard where Noelle once built a wooden swing set by hand. I remained in the living room long after everyone else had retreated to their rooms. I could hear Ashley's voice drifting down from the hallway, bright and animated as she selected filters for the photographs. Daniel laughed once, then went silent. I imagined the image on her phone screen, cropped, centered, balanced. I was not part of the symmetry. I walked toward the kitchen and rinsed the cocoa mugs they had left in the sink. I have always believed that if you are going to stay in a house, you respect it, even if it does not respect you back. The clock above the stove read 8:43. Outside, the temperature had dropped to 31 degrees. I dried my hands carefully and turned off the overhead light. The house is 3,200 square feet, but at night it feels smaller, almost intimate, as if the walls lean closer to listen. I climbed the staircase slowly, my hand gliding along the polished banister. Each step creaked in the same place it has creaked for years, right near the third riser from the bottom. Noelle used to say he would fix it. He never did. Some sounds become part of the architecture. When I reached my bedroom, I closed the door gently and sat at the edge of the bed. The quilt beneath my hands was one I stitched during the winter of 1998. Navy and cream squares. I remember because that was the year Daniel graduated from high school. We held his celebration in the backyard with folding tables and a rented tent that cost $300 for the weekend. I was in every photograph that day. Not because I demanded to be, but because it never occurred to anyone to leave me out. Times change quietly. I opened the top drawer of my dresser and removed a small brass key attached to a faded blue ribbon. I had not used it in months. The hallway closet was dark when I reached it, but I did not need the light. My hand found the coats, the spare umbrella, the stack of old board games. Behind them, bolted into the wall, was the metal lockbox Noelle installed the year Daniel married Ashley. He told me it was better to have important things organized. Practical advice. I inserted the key and turned it until I heard the soft click. Inside were folders labeled in my careful handwriting. Property tax statements. Home insurance renewals. The original deed dated 23 years ago. My name. Margaret Collins. Sole owner. I ran my finger lightly over the ink, not out of sentiment but out of clarity. Facts are grounding. There is comfort in black and white language that does not shift with moods or social media captions. Daniel and Ashley moved in after Noelle passed. It was supposed to be temporary. They had sold their condominium and were searching for something larger, something closer to the school district they preferred. That was 3 years ago. Temporary arrangements often settle into permanence when no one challenges them. I closed the folder and returned it to its place. I locked the box again and stood there for a moment in the dim hallway. Upstairs, I heard Ashley's footsteps cross the bedroom floor. A drawer opened, closed. A soft hum of satisfaction. I wondered how long it would take before she posted the photograph. I wondered how many likes it would gather. None of those numbers would alter the structure of this house. Ownership is not determined by applause. I walked back to my bedroom and placed the brass key on the nightstand beside Noelle's old reading glasses. I turned off the lamp and lay down, staring at the ceiling where faint shadows from the tree lights flickered through the crack beneath the door. I did not feel angry. Anger is loud. What I felt was steadier than that. It was the kind of realization that arrives without drama, like discovering the temperature has changed overnight. I had spent 3 years trying not to disturb the peace. I had convinced myself that being patient was the same as being kind. But standing outside a photograph in my own living room had clarified something simple. If they could redefine my place in this family without speaking to me, then I could redefine theirs without raising my voice. The house settled with a low, familiar sound as the heating system turned on. Warm air moved through the vents. I closed my eyes and listened. I have learned that decisions made in silence are often the most permanent ones. The photograph was online before I finished my morning coffee. I knew it would be. Ashley has never been patient with presentation. I sat at the kitchen table at 7:15, the winter sun barely lifting above the bare maple trees in the backyard, and opened my tablet. The house was quiet except for the hum of the refrigerator and the faint ticking of the wall clock above the pantry door. I searched her page without hesitation. There it was. A glossy image framed by a caption about gratitude and family unity. Daniel stood tall in the center, one arm around Ashley, the children smiling in matching sweaters I had ironed the night before. The trees sparkled behind them. The fireplace glowed. It looked warm, complete, balanced. I studied the edges of the frame. The archway was visible. The staircase curve appeared in the background. Even the corner of the antique cabinet I refinished 3 summers ago was there. Everything was included. Everything except me. I did not zoom in. I did not leave a comment. I simply noted the time. 7:22 in the morning. By 8 o'clock, the photograph had accumulated dozens of likes. Small red hearts. Short comments about beautiful families and holiday blessings. Presentation shapes perception. I understand that now more clearly than ever. Daniel came downstairs at 8:30, dressed for work. His tie slightly crooked the way it has been since he was a teenager learning to knot it for church. He poured himself coffee and avoided my eyes for a moment too long. "The photos turned out great," he said lightly. I nodded and stirred my cup. "They did," I replied. My voice sounded even. Neutral. He hesitated as if he might add something, then checked his phone instead. Silence settled between us like a familiar guest. Ashley appeared shortly after, already dressed, her hair smooth and deliberate. "The post is getting a lot of engagement," she said with a small laugh, not looking directly at me. "People love holiday pictures." I rinsed my spoon in the sink and placed it carefully on the drying rack. "People love stories," I said. She paused, but only for a second. "Exactly," she answered. "Exactly." Later that morning, after Daniel left for the office and the children were dropped at school, I took a slow walk through the house. I measured my steps without meaning to. From the front door to the kitchen island is 23 paces. From the island to the back sliding door is 11. I know the dimensions of this house the way some people know a favorite song. The walls hold echoes of birthday parties, of science fair projects built on the dining room table, of quiet Sunday afternoons when Noel read the newspaper in his recliner. Ownership is not just paperwork. It is history embedded in square footage. I stopped in the living room and looked at the spot where I had stood the day before. The archway framed the space precisely. I could almost see the invisible outline where I had been removed. It occurred to me that exclusion often begins with something small enough to dismiss. A cropped photograph. A missing name on a holiday card. A sentence like immediate family delivered with a smile. Patterns reveal themselves slowly. I walked to the hallway closet and rested my hand against the door. I did not open it this time. I did not need to. Facts do not change overnight. The property taxes are paid through the end of the year. The insurance policy lists my name first. The utilities are in my account. Stability is quiet. That afternoon, Ashley invited a friend over for lunch. I overheard her in the kitchen describing the photo session. "We just wanted something clean," she said again. Clean. I stood at the top of the stairs and listened without anger. Words can be revealing when they are repeated. Clean means streamlined, efficient, free of what is considered unnecessary. I went back to my room and opened a small leather notebook I have kept since Noel passed. I wrote down a single sentence. Temporary arrangements require clear boundaries. The ink dried quickly. Outside, a delivery truck drove past, tires crunching over salt scattered on the pavement. Winter in Ohio is not dramatic. It is steady and cold and patient. I closed the notebook and placed it on my nightstand beside the brass key. Decisions do not need witnesses. They only need timing. 2 days later, I invited Daniel to sit with me at the dining room table after dinner. I chose the dining room on purpose. That table has witnessed every serious conversation in this house for more than 2 decades. The wood is dark mahogany, solid and heavy, and there are faint scratches near the corner where Daniel once carved his initials when he was 13. I ran my hand lightly over that mark before he came in. He sat across from me, loosening his tie, his expression cautious but not defensive. Ashley remained in the living room with her phone, her laughter floating in small bursts from behind the doorway. I folded my hands neatly on the table and looked at my son. "How long do you plan on staying here?" I asked. My voice did not rise. It did not tremble. It was simply a question. Daniel blinked, surprised. "What do you mean?" he asked. "We have been here 3 years," I said. "Originally it was 6 months." He leaned back in his chair and crossed his arms, a posture I recognized from his teenage years when he felt cornered but did not want to admit it. We have been saving, he said. You know that. The market has been unpredictable. I nodded slowly. Yes, I replied. The market can be unpredictable. Ownership, however, is not. He looked at me then, really looked at me, and something in his eyes shifted from confusion to caution. I let the silence stretch long enough for him to feel it. The refrigerator hummed in the kitchen. The heating system clicked on. Ordinary sounds. Ashley feels like you do not see us as independent, he said carefully. I considered that. Independence requires boundaries, I answered. Boundaries require clarity. He exhaled and rubbed his forehead. Mom, is this about the photos? I did not answer immediately. Instead, I stood and walked to the living room, where the framed family portrait from 3 years ago still hangs above the fireplace. That photograph includes Noel. It includes me. It includes Daniel standing close to his father. I gestured toward it gently. This house has always had room for everyone, I said. But it has never been confused about who built it. Daniel followed my gaze. He looked uncomfortable, but he did not argue. Ashley appeared in the doorway then, drawn by the tone rather than the words. Is everything all right? She asked brightly. I turned toward her with the same steady expression I had worn when she asked me to step aside for the camera. Everything is becoming clear, I said. She tilted her head slightly, smiling in that polished way she has perfected. Clear about what? She asked. I walked back to the dining room and retrieved a single folder from my bag. I had taken it out of the lockbox that morning. Not dramatically, not impulsively, simply because it was time. I placed the folder on the table and opened it to the first page. The deed. The ink has not faded. The paper has not changed. My name stands alone in bold type. Margaret Collins. Sole owner. Ashley's smile faltered for the briefest second before returning. Daniel leaned forward, scanning the document. I know you own the house, he said quietly. We have never argued that. I nodded. Then you understand that staying here is a privilege, not an entitlement, I replied. The room felt smaller, though nothing had physically shifted. Ashley crossed her arms, mirroring Daniel's earlier posture. We are family, she said. I met her eyes without hostility. Family does not remove one another from the frame, I answered. The words hung between us, not loud, not dramatic, but undeniable. Daniel swallowed. What are you saying? He asked. I closed the folder gently and rested my hands on top of it. I am saying that temporary arrangements need timelines, I said. And respect needs to be mutual. Outside, a car drove past, its headlights sliding briefly across the walls before disappearing. The house stood solid around us, unmoved by tension. I did not threaten. I did not raise my voice. I simply let the facts settle into the room like dust in sunlight. Ashley glanced at Daniel, then back at me. For the first time since she stepped me out of that photograph, she was not directing the scene. She was listening. And I was no longer standing at the edge of the frame. Daniel did not argue that night. That unsettled me more than anger would have. After Ashley returned to the living room and closed the door a little too firmly, my son remained at the table, staring at the deed as though it were a contract he had overlooked in a business meeting. He has always been practical. Numbers make sense to him. Ownership makes sense to him. What does not make sense to him is emotion delivered without drama. What exactly are you asking for? He said quietly. I took a slow breath and chose my words the way I used to choose fabric when sewing, careful not to waste anything. I am asking for a plan, I said. A real one. In writing. With dates. He rubbed his jaw and nodded slowly. You want us to move out, he said. It was not an accusation. It was a realization. I met his eyes. I want clarity, I replied. If this house is no longer home for me in your photographs, then it cannot remain indefinite shelter for you in real life. He looked down at the table again, tracing the old scratch he carved there as a boy. Ashley feels like you judge her, he said after a moment. I do not judge her, I answered. I observe her. Observation is quieter than criticism. It is also harder to dispute. The next morning I woke before sunrise. The sky outside my bedroom window was pale gray. The kind of Ohio winter morning that feels suspended between frost and thaw. I made coffee and sat alone in the kitchen, listening to the house breathe. 3 years ago, after Noel passed, this space felt cavernous. The silence had weight. When Daniel and Ashley moved in, the noise returned. Children's footsteps. Cabinet doors closing too quickly. Laughter. I had welcomed it. I told myself that sharing space would soften grief. Instead, it blurred ownership. I opened my leather notebook and wrote another sentence beneath the first. Kindness without boundaries becomes permission. The ink bled slightly into the paper fibers. I closed the notebook and placed it beside my cup. At 9 o'clock, I called a real estate attorney I had not spoken to since Noel's estate was finalized. His name is Thomas Bradley. His office is 15 minutes away, near the courthouse downtown. He answered on the second ring, his voice steady and professional. "Margaret," he said warmly. "How are you?" "I am well," I replied. "I need guidance." I did not dramatize the situation. I stated facts. Sole ownership. Adult son residing without lease. No rental agreement. No written timeline. Thomas listened carefully. "You are within your rights to formalize occupancy or to provide notice," he said. 30 days is standard. Standard. I thanked him and scheduled an appointment for Friday at 10 in the morning. When I ended the call, I did not feel triumphant. I felt organized. Ashley came into the kitchen shortly after, her hair pulled into a neat ponytail, her phone already in hand. "Daniel told me you want us to set a move-out date," she said, leaning against the counter. Her tone was controlled, almost measured. I poured myself another half cup of coffee before answering. "I want you to understand that living here is not automatic," I said. "It is conditional." She gave a tight smile. "We are family," she repeated, as if the word itself should override paperwork. I looked at her calmly. "Family respects presence," I replied. "Family does not edit one another out of existence." Her expression shifted, not into apology but into calculation. "This is about a photograph," she said. "This is about patterns," I corrected. Silence filled the room. The children's backpacks rested by the door, small and bright against the neutral walls. I glanced at them and then back at her. "You are building your version of this family," I said softly. "I am protecting mine." That afternoon, I gathered copies of utility statements, insurance documents, and property tax receipts. I placed them neatly into a folder. Not to intimidate. To clarify. The house remained steady around me, unaware of shifting dynamics. Outside, snow began to fall in thin, deliberate flakes. It covered the lawn evenly, without preference. I watched it from the window and felt something settle inside me. I had spent years preserving harmony. Now I was preserving ownership. There is a difference. And for the first time since that photograph was taken, I no longer felt invisible inside my own walls. To with graven be noi dung twin thune with circumflex. Ton tun be noi dung twin thune with circumflex. Ton tun be noi dung twin thune with circumflex. Ton tun be noi dung twin thune with circumflexum ton.